Hello everyone and welcome back to Fly From Home. It's Kitty here again with another Microsoft Flight Simulator video for you. And I just thought I'd feature the A2A Comanche again because it's such an absolutely awesome aeroplane. If you've not watched my original review of this, go give it a watch if you aren't on board with the Comanche yet, because it is a really cool bit of kit. But I just thought it was worth enjoying what's left of the summer now with the real world weather set by doing a little tour of my favourite free airports from Microsoft Flight Simulator. Obviously UK, because I am UK based and I don't really, well, I flew a little bit in Florida years ago, but for the most part I just know the UK. So I'm going to give you a little tour of my favourite free airports, and obviously there'll be a link in the description should you want to go and download any of these. Now the first one we're going to start with is this place. This is RAF Church Fenton, it's now called Leeds East Airport. And this is a really great bit of free scenery. It's all from flightsim.to. I'll put the name of the author on the screen now because I can't really remember. But I've flown a fair bit from this place, and I can tell you that this is a really good representation of what the place looks like in real life. There are indeed loads of these. They look a bit like shipping crates. They're actually prefabricated houses packed into these sort of boxes, which is kind of cool, I guess. And they all live on the old disused section of the runway here. This runway here, this cross runway, is now disused. It used to be operational not that long ago, but it's been closed for now. I think they are planning on bringing it back. Main runway is here, which is 2405. I don't know. I'm being stupid now, aren't I? I believe it is 2405. Let me just double check. 06. I can't do maths, but that should be no surprise to anyone. So this is a really interesting little airport. There's lots of cool things that happen here on a daily basis. The end hangar here, which used to be where the Air Experience flight used to live back in the RAF days. So this is where, if you were an Air Force cadet, as I was, you would come and have your first taste of flying an aeroplane in this hangar. Now it belongs to a company that tests building cladding, I think, or something like that. It's also home to a film studio as well, a film company that does various different things. This building as well is also run by them. It's got a nice little Cessna 150 parks outside at the moment. This hangar here is still used for aeroplanes, so if you keep your plane at Leeds East, this potentially is where you're going to be parked. Or this one here is the new hangar for all the shiny fancy aeroplanes. Jet fuel Bowser over here, and we've got an avgas Bowser over here, and fire station, and the old Air Force air traffic control tower, which is actually quite well equipped for a GA airfield. This is all uncontrolled, by the way. We don't have radar or anything like that at Church Fenton. It's all kind of bandit country, as it was. You can just kind of do what you want, but it's fun, I guess. This place is an FBO, so you see it's quite fancy. And this DMB collection is actually a really fancy supercar dealership. So in real life, in here, there are lots of really cool shiny cars. As you can see, the windows aren't quite see-through on this scenery, unfortunately, but got to save that frame rate on you somehow. We've got the little cafe here, the Fenton Bar and Cafe and Grill. Ooh, there we go. Aviators, friends and families. No one else is allowed. Jokes. If you want to go there, if you do live in the UK and you live near this place, I'd recommend going to this cafe. I've eaten there a few times. It's pretty cool. It's pretty good. People are friendly. Food's good. Well, decent. I'm not a gourmet by any means, but it's good in my book. Various different old Air Force buildings which are occupied by lots of different companies that pay the chap who owns the Air Force, owns the airfield, a load of money to keep the place going. And this is the old station headquarters building with the nice sign on the front. So yeah, very smart. That's all offices and things like that, and a couple of flying schools live in here as well. So yeah, I can vouch for this scenery. It's very good. It looks very much like it does in real life. It's a nice little citation here. There is actually a CJ4, I believe, that lives at this airfield. And King Air and all sorts of things, and then we'll go back to our aeroplane. So that's our first bit of scenery. There's one complaint I've got, Mr. Guy who makes the scenery. If you watch this video, it's this clump of trees here in between the taxiway and the runway. There are no trees here in real life, and nor would there allowed to be a clump of trees inside the airfield boundary like this. So if you could chop them down, that would make the scenery a lot more realistic. But that's the only complaint I've got. Other than that, really, really great effort, and obviously it's completely free. So I guess splitting hairs and picking at things is a bit mean of me. But I thought I should make that observation just in case the chap who made the scenery decides to watch this. Let's go back to our command sheet, and I'll tell you a little bit about what we're going to be doing. So I've got a nice livery here, which is also going with the theme of free stuff off the internet. This livery is completely free from flightsim.to. I thought I'd go for something that looked a little bit more shiny than the default ones that come with the airplane, and it looks very nice. I've equipped all of the optional extra add-ons to the aircraft, so we should be getting absolute maximum speed out of it, because we've got all the cool little aerodynamic bits like the wing fairings and the fancy composite prop and landing gear fairings and all sorts of different things on there. So we've got a new look. I've filled all of the fuel tanks up with fuel. We're going with just one person on board. This lady here, she's going to be our pilot for today. And we're going to be stopping off at all these different airfields. Hopefully we're not going to need any more fuel, but I'll keep an eye on things and might have to top it up as we go along. So I'm not going to bore you all by showing you the walk around and all that kind of stuff, but those of you who watched my video will know that there is a walk around procedure for this aeroplane that you can do. You can check the fuel and all the other stuff, which is exactly what you'd be doing in real life if we're going for a fly around in this plane, which is very, very cool indeed. We'll just do a quick inspection on the engine and make sure everything's nice and healthy. There we go, looking good. There we go, yeah. And inspect the plane. Yeah, we've got no failures. I have got the failures turned on, so something random might die at some point in the flight, which should make things interesting, I guess. Right, let's go to the checklist. So before engine start, pre-flight is complete. Passengers, we don't have any. Seatbelts are secure. Control locks are removed. Parking brake. Let's just double check that that is indeed set. Yeah, it is. It's pulled out. So that's done. Gear switch is set to down. Flaps are up. Radios are all off. Autopilot master switch is in the off position. Avionics master's off. All electrical switches are all, yep, off. Circuit breakers. Let's check the circuit breakers. They're all under there. So make sure none of them are popped out. That's good. Rotating beacon can come on. There we go. Okay, engine start checklist. Fuel selectors to desired tank. Now, there's been a bit of a debate in the comments of my review video as to what you're supposed to actually do with the fuel tank selectors on this aeroplane, if you're supposed to just burn from one side at a time. Going back to my own experience with this aeroplane, I don't remember us ever doing that, but it was quite a long time ago that I flew this aeroplane, so I'm willing to defer my lack of knowledge to the more experienced of you out there, or the ones who've done more research than I have anyway. We're going to start the aeroplane on the, in fact, we'll start on the mains, and we're going to power check and fly on the tip tanks. We're going to get the tip tanks empty first, because I believe that's how you're supposed to do it. Please forgive me if I'm wrong. Generally, if you've got auxiliary fuel tanks, you get rid of them as soon as you can and go down to the main tanks, just because it makes the airplane a bit more stable, or reduces a bit of a stress on the airframe generally. So hopefully that's the case with the command sheet. If not, I apologise. Okay, so fuel selectors, we're gonna leave them on the mains for now. Mixture is going full rich. Throttles cracked open, full and free. Prop is full and free and full forward. Carb heat is in. Master switch, so electrical master switch is on. Fuel pump is coming on. Fuel pressure, so check if we've got some pressure. Should be coming up. Yeah, it is into the green. Then the fuel pump can go off. And pressure's maintained. Primer, let's give it some prime. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and throw it in there. Mags to both, which it is, because I'm a terrible pilot and I didn't check. That's not very safe, leaving the mags live, but never mind. Prop area's all clear. And engage the starter. So cover the brakes, shout clear prop, and pray that it starts. There we go. Remember, this airplane's got an incredible randomized start system, which means it sometimes starts up straight away, sometimes takes a little while, depends on ambient air temperature and if the airplane's just been running and all this kind of stuff. It's all really, really cool. That was a slightly unsettling noise. I think that was the door blowing closed, which is really cool. Let's try and secure this. There we go. I did not know it did that. That's very, very cool indeed. Okay, so starter warning light out. RPM is 1,000. That's good. Fuel pump is already off. Oil pressure obviously is green. A mixture. Let's lean that out to stop the plugs getting fouled up. Taxi checks. Primer is in and locked. Avionics mast can now come on. So you notice I've gone for a slightly different setup here. Just going to update my digital engine monitor with the correct fuel levels. Yeah, so I've gone for a slightly different radio setup than I went for with the review video. I had the 750 on the review video. This time I've just got the working title 530 and 430 setup with the old school transponder, which will set to a UK VFR setting. Pop onto standby. That's all in date. We can click through. Is it going to do the pre-flight check? Does it do the pre-flight check? I don't know. I guess not. It's not showing anything there. Normally it would do half left out of view, half up out of view. It would give you the setting. It is giving you the setting on the OBS 141. That looks about right. So yeah, that bit's working, but not exactly how it would work in real life. But we'll click through that. It'll find some satellites hopefully for us. We've got 1025 as our QNH, so let's set that on the altimeter. Like that. Obviously you could just press B and do it, but I'm trying to be a little bit more realistic. Transponder is on standby and set. They're still warming up. We'll set up in a second. Heading indicator. So we're going to go for runway heading. What's the wind doing at the moment? It looks like we've got 171 at 3 knots. So we're going to be using runway 24 for takeoff. Although it's kind of mostly a crosswind, but 24 is the more into wind run. So let's set up that on our heading here. There we go. Landing gear is reading green. Nav lights, we're going to leave them off because it's daytime. Normally I'd have them on, but the nav lights in this aeroplane, when you turn them on, they make the gear indicator go dim and really hard to see, so I'm just going to leave them off. Parking brake here is, yeah, released, and then check the brakes and all the instruments and all that kind of stuff. Okay, I'm just going to put a route in for us. So the first place we're going to go is my old stomping ground of Nottingham. So let's hit the flight plan button. And let's put... Now, normally it would auto-populate the first waypoint with where you're starting off, but apparently Working Title haven't quite been able to implement that feature yet. So I guess I'm going to put it in manually. So that's all in. I kind of know the way. as I should do really, because I know this part of the world pretty well, so we probably aren't going to need too much of the GPS, but we'll have it on there just in case we need a bit of situation awareness. So we should be ready to go. So we'd make a radio call, we'd have a good look around, hold the brakes, and release parking brake, idle throttle, and away we go. Quick check of the steering, got full right travel, full left travel, and the brakes are working. Engine's actually sounding a little bit rough. We need to lean it out a little bit more to stop the plugs from fouling up. How are we doing temperature wise? Temps on the gauge, so it shouldn't be too bad. I love the way this thing taxis. It really feels actually planted to the ground, unlike a lot of aeroplanes in Microsoft Flight Simulator that feel like they're kind of hovering along at extremely low level. Just everything about this, the way this airplane handles, is really spot on. Got a nice little Defender fire appliance there. Trying to use the right words. As you can see, it's nice weather today. I've got real world weather set up in the simulator. It's surprisingly lovely in the UK today, which is not at all the default for this country. But we are going to check the instruments as we taxi along. See, we're turning right, numbers increasing, wings right, ball should be going left. I'll have another check of that as we do a turn round at the end. Okay, wind's coming from about 170 degrees, so we'll swing round and point into that as best we can. And there we go. We'll set the parking brake, and then we'll go into our run-up checklist. So we're positioned into wind, the brakes are holding, fuel quantity is good, but we're going to switch onto our auxiliary tanks now. So tip tank, tip tank. So we know that the fuel's flowing fine from the main tanks because we've just started the aeroplane and taxied it on it. Now we're going to check the auxiliary tanks. Mixture is going to go full rich, throttle, we check clear behind, cover the brakes, and we go up to 2,000 RPM. You see the RPM indicator fluctuating a little bit. That's very common on Pipers. Okay, we've got 2,000 engine instruments. We are in the green across the board. Suction's looking good. Mags, so let's do the mags. If I can get my mouse over it. It's a drop of about 100 RPM, I guess. Let's drop that back down to 2,000 and do that again. I was a little bit distracted by other things when I did that. There we go. About 100 RPM, that's within limits. Back to both. And right. It's a bit rough. Let's lean it out, see if we might have a bit of fouling on that mag. Okay, so what you can do when you have a bit of fouling, you can lean out and then get the power right up high, and it will often heat things up enough to burn any fouling off the plugs. Not mega recommended, but because it's not enormously good for the engine. But it might just rectify our situation here. So let's see if it has actually done that. Good. Good. There we go. A little bit of DIY engineering there. Please, all of you engineers out there, don't beat me up too hard. Right, okay, so that's mags are checked. Prop, let's do the prop. So, 1. Increase in manifold, decrease in RPM. And 2. No oil over the front. And keep an eye on the oil pressure. Fluctuation in oil pressure. That's good. We're going to do a carb heat check. Drop an RPM, about 100, indicates it's working, and back off again. Throttle idle, check got a smooth idle, which we have, up to 1,000. Number 5 has got a little bit hot, so we'll keep an eye on that. Okay, before takeoff checks, controls. So let's do left, right, full forward, full back. We've done the rudder as we were taxiing. Elevator trim is, let's go a little forward on this to the neutral position. Rudder trim hasn't been touched. Door is latched. Flaps are up. Fuel selections on the tip tanks. Fuel pump will go on. Mixture full rich. Props full forward. Carb heats off. Engine gauges are all in the green. Cylinder head temperatures calm down now. Pitot heater is going to come on in a second. Strobes are going to come on in a second. Landing light's going to come on in a second. And takeoff checklist is going to be throttle, airspeed, engine indications, rotate at 85, positive climb, gear and flap up, climb at 105, and make sure we are clear of the emergency area if we have an engine failure, all that kind of good stuff. Right, do a quick takeoff briefing. So it's going to be left seat VFR departure runway 24 at Church Fence, and any emergency or engine failure before point of rotation will stop on the remaining runway. Anything after with sufficient runway, we land straight ahead on the runway. Anything with insufficient runway remaining, we pick a point 30 degrees left or right of the runway centre line to put the aircraft down into appropriately. Obviously, any emergencies, I'll have control of the aircraft and we'll deal with it as required. If it's not an engine failure, we'll take the aircraft round the visual circuit, got visual conditions here, back round to land on the runway we've just taken off from. If we find ourselves in instrument conditions, we've got Leeds Bradford, not too far away, fly the ILS to land there. Any questions? No questions? Right, okay, we're all good. So that's all set up. How's the temperature in here, by the way? 70. Apparently we're cold in here. Let's put a little bit of heat on. There we go. Now it's warming up. I have to keep an eye on that because it might get a bit too hot, but never mind. That's looking okay. Okay, let's line up, shall we? So, approach path is all clear. Transponder is going on to altitude reporting, and strobes, lights, and the pitot heater are all going on. ATPL is the little acronym that I always use for that. As long as you remember that, you never forget any of your takeoff checks. And we do one last check of the T's and P's, they're all good. We'll do one last blast of the carb heat, make sure we've got no carb icing, because the Comanche is particularly susceptible to carb icing. There we go, we're looking good. Controls into wind, because we do have some left crosswind, and let's go. Power's set and indicating airspeed's alive. Away we go. Very little effort on the yoke required to get the Comanche into the air. Positive climb, insufficient runway remaining, gears coming up. Looking for 105 on the climb. Okay, we're away from the ground. Let's set climb power, 24. And 24. Okay, so passing 1,000 feet after takeoff checks, flaps are up, gears up. The landing lights, we'll keep them on for now, because we're departing an uncontrolled airfield, quite a busy one. Could be aircraft coming in the opposite direction. Fuel pump can go off though. So we'll climb initially to 2,000 feet past the VRP, which is a road junction at the A1M motorway. And once we pass that, we can depart en route. So slightly strange VFR joining procedures for this airfield in real life, because it's very, very close to another airfield called Sherburn in Elmet. So close the ATZs of the two places basically touch each other. So in order to facilitate that and not have aeroplanes from the two airfields smacking into each other, Church Fenton has to have a slightly wonky joining and departing procedure via these two VRPs at either end of the runway. City of Leeds ahead of us there. Home to, I don't know, Leeds Airport. I guess I don't know particularly much about Leeds. I'm sorry, I'm not a very good tour guide. Oh, it's the home of Jet2, the UK airline, if you're familiar with it. Formerly known as Channel Express. They got the silver and red planes. Right, let's pop a direct 2 in there. And go for the climb. So got a desired track of 170 degrees. Let's set the CDI to that. So time, we know the time. About 1:45. Turn the aircraft. Twist the DI once we're in level flight to make sure it's aligned. Make a radio call in real life, so it'd be saying November 7621 Papa, overhead the A1M1 VRP routing southbound. And we'd probably change en route, probably get a radar service from Leeds Airport, Big Leeds Airport. Unfortunately in the UK we don't have anything cool like you guys have flight following over in the US, any of the US bros listening. We don't really have that in the UK. What we have to do is we have to call up different air traffic service authorities and ask them very nicely to look after us with a radar service of some kind. So on a nice day like this I'd probably ask for a basic service, which is, as the name suggests, the most basic type of service they can give you. So they don't deconflict you with traffic, they will advise you with traffic where their workload permits, but not necessarily. If they've got a bit more capacity, they will upgrade you to a traffic service, which, as the name suggests, does give you a lot more information about other aircraft, which is what you're interested in. Inevitably, on a nice sunny day, your biggest threat is other aircraft, especially gliders, because gliders are very, very tricky to spot. I'm going to lean out a touch, get us settled down in the cruise, and I'll see you at Nottingham. Okay, so we've got 13 miles to run now, track miles to run to Nottingham. You can see the city coming up in front of us just there. So I'm going to start running a few checks, getting us ready for the approach and landing at Nottingham. So first of all, we've got to find out what airfield, what runway we should be landing on. So if we have a look at the weather, we should be able to bring a meter up. Let's see if we can find East Mids or something similar. Alright, so that sucks. Let me just check my phone instead. Okay, 130 the wind's coming from, so let me think. I can remember any of the Nottingham runways. It's going to be 09. Yeah, runway 09. Okay, let's go for that. So 09 is going to be across there, so let's put it on the CDI for conspicuous, well, for situational awareness, not conspicuity. Aligning the heading bug there. We're going to go back into heading mode on the autopilot. Got the autopilot on the moment. Just coming up to 9 miles now, so let's go mixture rich and come back on the power and turn altitude hold mode off, and just pulling the power back there should set us up in a nice gentle descent. I'm going to put the carb heat on now. You'll notice it's much quieter in the cockpit. That's because I've turned my noise cancelling headset on there. There we go. And I'm just going to vary the power to achieve a sensible rate of descent. It's maybe a little bit steep. Just come back again a little bit. Oh, I'm still suffering with these freezers a little bit. By the way, I thought I'd solved them completely, but they still occasionally rear their heads. Hopefully, with the next update, they'll go away. I'm still getting them a bit. especially with add-on scenery. I tend to find the more complicated stuff. I've got a fancy East Midlands scenery which I paid for, which is tends to knock the frame rates quite a lot, actually. Or, well, not knock the frame rates, it causes this kind of stuttering quite a lot. Anyway, okay, so fuel pump is on. We checked the levels, we're still good in our left and right tip tanks. Radio set up for the join, so we put the comms radios in, but we're okay. Mixture's full rich, mags are on both, and DI, we've got that. So let's line it up. The airplane will fly straight for a second. Oh god, the joys of a compass. I don't miss this at all. There we go. Let's go for that. And go for the checklists. So, approach checklist, autopilot is coming off in a second. Fuel pump is on, fuel selectors are on the tip tanks, fuel levels are all checked and good, fuel pressure is in the green. Mixture's full rich, props full forward in a second. It's not just yet. Carb heat is on at the moment. Airspeed is going to be below 120 in a sec when we put gear down and flaps, and then we do our pre-landing checks. We can see the airfield coming up here. So 09 is the right-left runway coming across this way. And this is disused. This is 2103. So this is the runway we're going to be landing on. Let's go disconnect the autopilot now. We'll close the throttle a bit more and retrim to start slowing the airplane down. Doing about 140 knots at the moment, which is a touch fast for a join to a VFR airfield. I'm going to pop the landing lights on for conspicuity, just in case there's any traffic in the circuit. So yeah, we're a touch fast and high at the moment, 2,000 feet. But that's it's going to be okay. I mean, we've got to do a standard overhead join for Nottingham anyway. That's the preferred joining method. So 2,000 feet is what we want, but just a little bit faster than ideal. But that's coming back now. That's 120. Want to be doing about 100 knots. So I'm going to pull the prop back to about 2,300 RPM. Should help with noise, and we're always conscious of noise when we're flying in and around airfields. Obviously, we're a much lower altitude, so for anyone on the ground, it's much more obnoxious to hear buzzing airplane noises. And we are clear all around. So at this point I'll be calling overhead, descending dead side, at which point I would then shut the throttle or something similar, ignore the gear warning horn, and start to bring the airplane round on the dead side of the runway, the side at which the circuit is not, down to circuit heights, which at Nottingham is 800 feet, but we're flying on QNH, so that means we need to add 150 foot airfield elevation to that, so we're going for 950. And it's going to freeze, there we go. So we want to keep this fairly tight to the airfield, but we're aiming to sort of cross the end of the runway there on the active numbers, which should keep us safe from any aircraft taking off. But you have to kind of vary this distance often with traffic. If there's somebody there, you don't really want to be cutting directly inside them. You want to be maybe taking it a bit wide and slotting in behind them. You have to kind of take it on a case-by-case basis. I'm just trying to shut that gear warning horn up by putting the throttle forward just enough to take that out. You don't really want to be listening to the gear warning horn for too long, because you can kind of become blind to it and then its entire purpose becomes irrelevant. If you're used to hearing the gear warning horn, then it won't alert you that your gear isn't working. Or isn't down, sorry, not that it isn't working, that it isn't down when it should be. Right, clear to the left, coming onto the downwind leg. Those of you who watch my review videos know that I usually always land on runway, well, I always land on runway 27 at Nottingham when we get in here, because I just turn the wind off, which means I always know which runway to land on. I just use the easiest one, but since we've got real weather in the sim today, I've got to actually do the circuit properly. So there we go. There's downwind, looking good, tracking down the centre line. So let's do our pre-landing check. So brakes are pressurised, parking brake off, undercarriage speed below 120, gear select down. Below 120, flaps all on. So that both will drag us up and also allow me to lower the nose a little bit and improve my visibility over the front. When I'm going to fly to, it's quite a tight circuit because we can't fly too far into Nottingham City itself at this altitude. In a single engine aeroplane that wouldn't be very sensible, just in case we had an engine failure. We've got to have somewhere to glide. So undercarriage down, mixture mags, flaps, fuel on sufficient imbalance, carb heat's on, hatches and harness secure, lights are on. We've already done the approach. Checklist, landing checklist is just gear, flaps and airspeed. Looking for about 90 knots on final, or 90 miles an hour, sorry, on final. Let's have another stage of flaps in. Go reds, blues and greens. So reds fall forward, blues fall forward, greens fall forward. And I've overshot the centre line. Last stage of flaps are a touch high. Glide over this house here on short final. Coming past 300 feet, carb heat goes off. Bit of crosswind from the right, crab into it. And kick straight before we touch down and drop the wing to prevent us from blowing across the runway, and then just float down the whole length of the runway as usual. Not my best landing, I must say. Anyway, the video's not about my flying, it's about the scenery. So ignore my flying. Okay, so starting out from the control tower / airport cafe here. So this doubles up. We've got a cafe on the bottom with some nice little seating bits and pieces out here. Very popular with the local kids and mums to come and look at the airplanes. This is the building that I used to work in back in the day. I used to sit in an office just there and brief all my students up and take them flying. I worked here for about 3 years doing PPL. Didn't do CPL or IR back then or multi-engine stuff. I just did the basic stuff because I just sort of started out as an instructor. So lots of fond and not so fond memories of this place. It was an interesting time. It was a lot of fun for the most part though. Avgas stand is here and a little bit missing from over here. So this is where your jet fuel bay would be in real life. Yes, they do have jet fuel here, believe it or not. That's the fire unit in real life, so that's a little garage with the fire engine lives in. That's actually a private hospital over here. This is the rival flying school lived here. I think they still do actually, but this looks like a bit of a work in progress, so we'll not look too closely at that. Over here, so this is here's the car park, and moving along here. In real life, there's like a little barrier along that to stop people just walking onto the airfield. And this is the other part of the apron over here. You've got a maintenance company that runs this hangar here, and this is where most of the airplanes are kept at night. There, and there's a fancy hangar around the back for the fancy planes. Needless to say, our planes didn't live in here, and it's very nicely modelled. There's a bunch of warehouses and things built on the site of the airport as well. As anyone familiar with airports in the UK will know, a lot of the landowners that own these places try to squeeze as much money out of them as possible by selling off bits of the airfield to companies to build all sorts of different things on. So hence why we've got a private hospital and a bunch of warehouses on a little GA airfield. The control tower here is, well, it's not that nice in real life, I'll tell you that. It's certainly not that big. Spent many an hour sat in this control tower watching my students go on first solos. So there we go. Interesting little airfield. It was originally military, as a lot of the GA airfields in the UK were. A lot of the commercial airfields in the UK started off as air bases. But this was a Second World War. I think it was Wellington bombers that were based here. There's still some of the... I don't know if this scenery's got it. Maybe not. but around the airfield there were old pillboxes. Don't know if that translates over to you guys in the US, but this is where it is. It's kind of like a concrete emplacement for a machine gun, like a machine gun nest type thing. There's a few of them knocking around the airfield. There is one which is over here. So yeah, this is it here. So you can see the shape of it on the ground there, kind of a hexagon type thing, or a pentagon. It actually fills up with water in the winter, and there's a nice little pond that lives inside it. And one of my students was sort of laughing around the outside of this thing and thought it was just like grass inside, because the water had all sort of like weed growing on top of it, and he thought it was just grass. And he stepped down in there and went down up to his knee in this horrible stinky water, which was really, really funny at the time. Anyway, that's Nottingham. So yeah, another great little bit of free scenery. This one maybe not quite as good as the Church Fenton one, but it is certainly an upgrade on the default scenery at Nottingham in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So if you do a bit of flying around Nottingham in the sim, I certainly recommend picking this up. Okay, so all of our pre-flight checks are done. We're ready to line up and go again. Our route into our next airport has been entered. So we're going to line up for runway 09 at Nottingham. Approach path is clear. Can't really see because of those trees. Transponder can go to alt reporting, pitot heat, and all the lights are coming on. So we're going to go once around the circuit, climbing as we go, and depart from sort of the crosswind leg. Okay, T's and P's are fine. One last blast to car peak, make sure we got no ice. Looking good. Let's go. Power set and indicating no warning lights, airspeed's alive. Rotate. For 105 in the climb, positive climb, insufficient runway gears coming up. Passing 500 with ground level, good look out to the left, start the turn. I cannot emphasize how much fun this headphones back on. This aeroplane is to fly in Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's a really, really rewarding thing. As much as I love the Cessna 414, the big twin, at the moment this is definitely my favourite plane to fly in Microsoft Flight Sim. Definitely worth picking up if you haven't already. Assuming of course, you enjoy GA airplanes. If you don't, probably not the airplane for you. Though I still recommend you check it out, because you never know. You may not like GA airplanes, but you might have a completely different opinion of this one. Now, in real life, I would have just busted East Midlands controlled airspace, because it's, well, no, actually won't have it, because it's 2.5. So I could get away with this, but above 2,500 feet, it's East Midlands controlled airspace. There's a shelf over there. Ooh, sounding a little rough. Oh, okay. Are we actually having some kind of emergency? We've got a rough running engine. We're in the overhead of an airfield, so it's probably the best place to be in a situation like this. So let's work the problem. It's probably not icing, but we'll run the carb heat just in case and see if that does something. It's not. So it's not that. Is it fouling? It could be. We can lean the mixture out, see if that helps. Isn't really. Let's have a look at the can see we're actually misfiring on the number 3 cylinder there, and the number 4 by the looks of things. So that's probably, we've got some kind of problem with the aeroplane. This is interesting, isn't it? Okay, cool. Well, we seem to have plenty of time to work the problem. Best decision to make is to return back to Nottingham and to make an approach on 09. Actions we're going to take, we're going to slow down, start descending the aeroplane. We'll get the gear down as soon as we can to drag up. And we'll review in a second. Let's put the carb heat on. So this is me regretting my decisions in life of leaving the failure system turned on. But hey ho, it's all good content, isn't it? Now, in real life I'd also be calling a pan-pan call, so it'd be pan-pan, 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 Nottingham Radio, November 7621 Papa, rough running engine on the dead side, runway 09, returning to land via a right base leg, runway 09. So hopefully whoever's in the tower at Nottingham would tell anybody else in the circuit to clear off. Going to be quite aggressive with this. Now at this lower RPM setting the engine does seem alright, but I'm not going to take any chances. Speed below 120, gear down. Gear down and green. Flap swarm. Right, let's put the fuel pump back on. Yeah, there's no warnings or anything that would indicate a major issue, but via the engine monitor it does look like something's up with cylinder number 3 certainly, so I think returning to the airfield is still the best option. So that's our review complete. Let's have another stage of flaps. Get the aeroplane descending. That could be that we don't have sufficient power for a go around here, so we need to make sure we stick this landing. So regardless of how minging the approach looks, we are going to be landing off this one. So no pressure. Carb heat's coming away. Well, the bonus was it's a much nicer landing this time. Maybe I should just call an engine failure every single time. It'll put enough pressure on me to actually do a good job. You can hear that misfire still happening. So pull off the runway. Shut everything down like in real life would be probably met by all the fire crew at this point, just in case some kind of fire risk or something like that. Pull off to the side a little bit. Avionics can go. Shut the engine down. Set the parking brake. And tell the passengers to get out. Fuel pump, master switch, all the other stuff can go off, but we wouldn't be paying too much attention to any of that. We'd just be getting out of the plane. Right. Okay, so now we're on the ground. We can have a look at the systems here. So let's press inspect and see what's wrong. Apparently cylinder number 3 is screwed. So this is our problem here. So this cylinder may not be firing at all. It isn't holding pressure, and oil is getting into the combustion chamber. Fuel is also, it's likely also getting into the oil, which will make it turn black sooner. These contaminants then get into all the moving parts. It needs a complete overhaul. Not airworthy. Beautiful, right. So we have had a good and proper engine failure. It's a failure of the number 3 cylinder. So if we replace that and inspect it again, that's looking a lot better, isn't it? I don't know if we have to do like a let's clean the spark plugs too. Do like an oil change or something like that. We seem to be okay. Down to 8.9 quarts, 75%. Maybe we top the oil up a little bit. There we go. Let's take it up to 100%. There we go. So let's just double check. We're all good. There we go. Well, there you have it. That's a great indicator of the Comanche's failure system. That's the first time I've had a failure. Would be when I'm recording a video, wouldn't it? Never mind. Okay, I'm going to get things fired up and running again, and we'll be back on the runway in no time at all. Okay, here we are, ready to go again. Let's have another quick blast on the carpet just to make sure it's looking good. Hopefully this time will be a little bit less eventful. So controls into wind, setting power, full power we have, and indicating airspeed's alive. T's and P's good. And away we go again. Insufficient runway, touch the brakes, gear coming up. Okay, we're over 1,000 foot now. Gears up, flaps up. Lights can go, fuel pump can go. Climb checklist, fuel pump up at 1,000, power set, cylinder head temperatures monitoring, lean is required, and we'll keep it mostly rich for now. It's only passing 2,000 meters. In fact, we'll just keep it full forward. So we'll assume we've got clearance from East Midlands to transit their airspace at, I don't know, 4,000 feet. And we'll set off down towards the Midlands. That was my terrible Brummie accent, by the way. Brummie accent. Let me just insult everybody from Birmingham. Okay, got a desired track of 204, so let's align that. I think our DI is a bit out of alignment, but I'm not going to mess around with it while we're still climbing. I'm not going to praise this aeroplane this time as we're climbing out, because last time I was singing its praises, it decided to try to kill us. So, now it didn't do anything that I didn't sort of ask for in an indirect way. It provided a realistic simulation of what owning a light aircraft is often like. You often have things going wrong. In fact, I had a partial engine failure at Nottingham back when I was a PPL instructor in a PA-28. That was a barrel of laughs. And I actually had to land on 09 just as we had to do there with a partially running engine that probably wouldn't have been able to go around. And yeah, did the exact same thing in real life. So thankfully I had a bit of prep for something like that. So if you're out flying your A2A Comanche, if you've got the failures turned on, just be aware that all of these things could happen to you. So make sure you do all your checks, take all of the appropriate action if the worst should come to it. Adds a whole extra degree of peril to flying flight simulators, doesn't that? Okay, let's go for 4,500 feet. That's a nice, sensible altitude. And make sure our power's set as required. can see Wimeswold disused airfield down here. It's covered in solar panels. So that's a good indication that we're on the right track. Obviously I've got the GPS as a backup. If we look over here, we can see the power station, and just behind the A pillar there is East Midlands Airport itself. I'll show you it's a bit better once it's actually past that part of the aeroplane. In fact, there we go. You can just about see it. The runway's still kind of hidden behind the A pillar though. Let's pop the autopilot on. So, autopilot master. And let's go into heading mode. And alt hold mode as well. There we go, there's East Midlands. See all the hangars and industrial buildings and stuff there. Very big centre for cargo. Which brings me on to another interesting subject. So, as people who follow this channel might know, I'm a full-time commercial flying instructor. Or at least I was, because I've got a bit of a career update. I'm actually going to be going away from flying instructing a little bit. I am still going to be instructing, at least part-time, but my main profession is changing. I'm going to go off to be a first officer on a Boeing 737, a cargo operation, still based in the UK. So that's that. The content of the channel isn't going to change unless you guys want it to. So if you guys want to hear little bits about the 737 type rating, it's going to be a 737 Classic initially, by the way. So if you want to hear anything about the 737 Classic, I'm more than happy to bring a bit of that onto the channel. Or the NG, because I'm going to be flying the NG as well at some point. The company that I'm working for has got both. So if you want to hear a bit of 737 related stuff, I know there are a lot of 737 content relators who undoubtedly will be a lot better than me out there on YouTube at the moment, so I don't want to try and occupy the same space as those guys and step on their toes, because it's an oversaturated market with people who are a lot more competent than I am. But if you guys do want me to do little bits of airliner type stuff, I'm more than happy to provide that if you think that would be interesting stuff. But the core content of this channel is still going to remain general aviation. It's still going to be where my heart is really at the end of the day. So it's going to just we're going to stick with the GA stuff and the flight instruction stuff, because I'm still going to be instructing a little bit in my spare time, and not PPL instructing. It's going to be instruments, multi-engine stuff, just like I'm doing full time at the moment. So I'm going to be able to bring you any sort of bits from that you might be interested in seeing. So hopefully we're going to be doing some streams soon, because I've just had a big upgrade to my home internet. So hopefully we'll get some streams on if you want to come along and watch those. Hopefully plenty of you will be free and able to do that. And yes, that's that. So my life is changing quite significantly, but the channel isn't going to be changing. The only difference is, if you really want me to, I will do a little bit of 737 related content. Jimbo, who is of course the other person who helps me run this channel, or one of the other people who helps me run this channel, there's 3 of us plus some other guys who help out on Discord. Jimbo is a 737 pilot as well now. Wallace, who is the guy who works behind the scenes, was a 737 captain. He's now a 787 first officer. So all 3 of us are going to have some something to bring to the table as far as the 737 is concerned, if you do want to see any of that kind of thing. If not, then we won't bother, and we'll just stick to GA stuff, which is our sort of USP, I guess. Okay, so a little update. We've got about 12 miles to go now to good old Coventry. So let's see if we can get, not a weight and balance, no, we want to get a weather update. Oh, it is, there we go. Right, 170 at 3 knots, so yeah, runway 23 is going to be our best bet, so let's start to come across this way a little bit, and we're also going to begin descending. Okay, so what I've done there is I've put the GPS into OBS mode, Omni Bearing Selector mode, and aligned it up on the runway magnetic, or roughly the runway magnetic, which we should be able to use to cheat a little bit. We can see the airfield just over here, but we're going to be coming down on a long final, which is often what Coventry information asks you to do. They're a air ground, but it's a slightly more qualified version of the air ground that Church Fenton and Nottingham have. So they can actually give you full control on the ground and also give you information in the air, although they don't have a radar anymore. It used to be quite a busy commercial airfield, Coventry. It's had actual scheduled flights and all sorts of things going to it, but no more, sadly. Okay, so fuel pump is coming on. Let's put the lights on for conspicuity. Radios are set, mixture can go full rich. Altimeter, let's just, in fact, can we get that? Well, let's see if we can get the Birmingham ESAR back. Let's see what their QNH is. There we go. It is 10:26, which we've got set. Not paying attention. I've just gone through the centre line. Never mind. We probably need a bit more space to help us descend anyway. DI's already on the centre line, so that's all set up. It's rather bumpy out there today, isn't it? You can notice the autopilot isn't doing an incredible job of maintaining headings in these kind of rough conditions, which you wouldn't really expect from an autopilot on such a old aeroplane. So, speaking of which, I'm going to disconnect now and fly it myself. We've got quite a lot of height and speed to get rid of, so I tell you what, let's arrest our descent a little bit so we can get below gear limiting speed and get the landing gear down, because that will help us in the long run. Let's just endure the honking for a sec. Below 125, gear select down, flaps select 1. There we go, it's reds, blues and greens. Big slugger nose up trim. So we've still got 4 white lights, but the speed's now looking a lot more sensible. Make sure we keep it below 125 though. Let's have another stage of flap. So you've got to be below 1,500 feet by the time you cross this line, I believe, here, which I think is a railway line, because there's a shelf of Birmingham airspace right over the top of Coventry, which is this bit here. So you need to make sure you don't bust that. Let's get our last stage in. Quite high elevation at Coventry, it's about 300 feet, so need to make sure you adjust for that when you're flying the circuit. Speed's now looking much better. Approach is looking nice and stable. The red lights are coming in now on the Pappy. But then again, we don't massively trust those in Microsoft Flight Simulator, do we? As soon as we read 600, I want to get the carpeet away. There we go, carpeet's going. This big road intersection here is a good laugh as you fly over the top of it, because this on a hot day there's usually a lot of thermal activity and stuff that comes off the tarmac, which can make landing a little interesting. Plus, if there's a left or right crosswind, there's a lot of buildings and stuff on the side of the airfield, so it can make life a little difficult for you, shall we say. Right, full idle now. Oh, I'm getting much better at these landings. Might actually be a competent pilot by the end of this video. I'm going to let it roll and come off on the apron. Which I need to make sure I don't miss. I think it's the next one. And then we'll have a look at this really cool free Coventry Airport scenery. Okay, so this apron here, the Bravo apron, is where most of the GA traffic at Coventry gets parked. We'll do this end of the airfield first, I guess. So moving down to the control tower, you can see the fire unit here. The helipad here is used generally for, there's an air ambulance unit which is based here, so the helipad here is often quite busy. So there's a fire unit. This is the radar, which is not spinning around, which is quite accurate to how it is in real life, because it doesn't spin around anymore. RIP. Like I said, they used to have radar and all sorts of fancy stuff here, but used to have an ILS and an NDB and all sorts of cool things. But unfortunately, Coventry Airport is now just another basic GA airfield now. So bit sad, but never mind. It's at least it's still running. Old terminal building here, as it was. So the FBO type building, where all the fancy passengers used to come and have a cappuccino before their flight. It's now owned by a flying school, so a flying school lives in that, and also these porta cabins next to it are owned by the flying school. This is owned by a maintenance provider, this building, so you see lots of quite cool aeroplanes in here getting maintained. They have a lot of, I mean, according to this scenery, it's all TBM 930s, but in real life it is a lot of big Cessna twins, so like 421s, 414s, all that kind of stuff get maintained here. There's like Piper Aerostars and all sorts of cool things. You can kind of have a wander around here and see a lot of airplanes. It's one of the first places I saw a lot of those airplanes and thought, ooh, I'd really like to fly one of those. Sadly, my career has never taken me in that direction. Not yet, anyway. So that's all maintenance. I'm not entirely sure what goes on in this building. Big warehousey thing. Coming over here, and we've got some really cool airplanes parked up just here. So this is the Coventry Airport Museum. So if you are based in the Midlands of the UK and you are an aviation enthusiast, I would certainly recommend coming here and having a look round. And the person who made this scenery has gone to an enormous amount of effort, because they've actually recreated all of the airplanes on display in the Cov Airport Museum, including the beautiful Avro Vulcan here, which, watch this space, because Just Flight are actually working on a version of this for Microsoft Flight Sims. That should be amazing. So yeah, Midlands Air Museum, that's what it's called. Sir Frank Whittle Jet Heritage Centre. Who was Frank Whittle? Well, he was the guy who invented the jet engine, so very important gentleman in the history of aviation. And all sorts of cool airplanes. That's some sort of Sud-Est fighter jet, I think. I don't know, I'm not sure. French thing. A couple of Lightnings. We've got a single-seater and a twin-seater in the Saudi Air Force colours. Got a Canberra. Again, don't know. Answers below. Cool looking French prop liner. We've got a fuselage of an F4 Phantom over here. Little, is it Czech Republic maybe? Training airplane there. Another Phantom, one of the later versions with an internal cannon. F-104 Starfighter of the Austrian Air Force, I think. That's a... with the offset cockpit. Oh, God. Answers on a postcard. Very distinctive airplane. I know it's in War Thunder. Sea Harrier, a Hunter. Javelin, Gloucester Javelin. And Argosy. Big ugly thing with the twin boom fuselage. Not sure what this cool little thing is. Very yellow. Of course, the Vulcan. So yeah, very nice to see all of those airplanes represented in a piece of flight sim scenery. Enormous amount of work that's gone into making that. One more little bit down here. So this is the Coventry Airport Flying Club, Flying School, whatever they called, Coventry Aeroplane Club. There we go. Let your imagination soar and learn to fly. So, like I said, there's a commercial flying school that owns that terminal building, old terminal building, and that's basically like the little PPL school is based down this end. Right, we'll go up the other end. These big buildings over the other side of the airfield, by the way, so this used to be part of the airfield, but now it's been all sort of cordoned off, so you see the taxiways just kind of end in nothing. This is all run by the Royal Mail, so the company in the UK which delivers all of the post runs these buildings over here. In real life, there's, I think there's, yeah, there it is, look, they've actually added it. Of course they have. The amount of effort that goes into this scenery. So this is a Lockheed Electra that is in rather sorry state. Sadly, all the engines are gone. Very, very cool aeroplane, the Lockheed Electra. But sadly, don't really have any flying examples over here. There's a brother to this aeroplane, still in the Atlantic Airlines type livery, that operates for Buffalo Air. So if any of you guys have seen Ice Pilots, they bought one of Atlantic Airlines' Electras and took it over to Alaska, is it, where those guys operate? I think it's Alaska. And they still fly it to this day. Brilliant aeroplane, the Electra. Very, very cool. Back over the other side. So we've got a couple of really big hangars over here, which are used to house all sorts of nice GA airplanes. See a few of them parked over here. This seems a little bit out of date, by the way, because this building here is gone. It's been demolished. And you can see a little advertisement for a flying school here. So yeah, this yeah, an Almat as well. This place doesn't exist anymore. This has all been demolished. But this is where the commercial flying school used to live. It now lives over in that in the terminal building over there. Yeah, and there's a fuel self-service avgas stand and all sorts of things. So they used to live there, but now they live all the way over on the other part of the airfield. See all the hangars here. Good amount of British International helicopters. Good amount of detail put into all these hangars. Very, very cool. These are quite old. I've had my my fair share of trying to lug these doors open and shut. They're an absolute nightmare. Would not recommend. We can see all of West Atlantic, which is the successor to Air Atlantic. So the Electra over there, the company that used to run those now, well, I don't think it does anymore, actually. No, it doesn't, because they've replaced all of these. So they used to run these things, which is the British Aerospace ATP, which is it kind of looks like a fat, ugly version of the Saab 2000. But it's a turboprop freight aircraft, and they used to have quite a big fleet of these things. One of my good friends started his career out flying these things. In fact, a couple of my friends who I went to university with ended up flying these airplanes for this company. Used to be a good way to start your career in commercial aviation. Sadly, I never got that kind of break, so I ended up instructing. So there we go. Cool to see those things parked up. They obviously aren't there anymore, or rather, maybe not obviously, but they aren't there anymore. Either they've all been parted out or sold off abroad. There is, I believe, one left on the airfield, but it's mostly just an empty airframe. All the stuff's been kind of stripped off. It was parts aircraft. So more aeroplanes which are being preserved. We've got the Nimrod over here. So this used to be our maritime patrol aircraft in the Royal Air Force until they all kind of ran out of airframe hours, and there was an attempt to try to modernise them, but it sort of fell through when the wing kit they developed from it didn't really work. And its predecessor over here, which is the Avro Shackleton, which has these really cool contra-rotating props. And it's got 4 Griffon engines out of a late series Spitfire. So probably sounds absolutely amazing when it fires up. I've never actually heard it running, but apparently this one does actually run. It fires up. So very cool airplane. It's one of the biggest airplanes ever to have forward-facing offensive armament. So it's got a pair of, I think, 20mm cannons in the nose for strafing submarines. pretty cool. And over here, we've got two aeroplanes which may be familiar to you guys playing Microsoft Flight Simulator, because they're the DC-6. So we've got a couple of DC-6s over here. This is actually one of the last, or was one of the last flying examples in the UK, and then it lost its airworthiness certificate for some reason or another, and now it's, well, it's not anymore because it's been dismantled and taken to a museum in Wales, along with this one, which has quite an interesting story behind it. So this was actually flown into Coventry Airport by a very experienced gentleman who is also a CAA examiner, or was a CAA examiner. He's retired now. Probably one of the most interesting people I've ever met in my life, and he landed this thing into Coventry Airport, never to leave again, because it had been bought by Air Atlantic, who are, like I said, are the forerunners to West Atlantic, to be converted into a restaurant. So you can see they had this sort of ramp going up to it, and you could sit in here and have your dinner, which was very, very cool. I never got the chance to do it because it was always full, booked up, and also quite expensive. And as a flying instructor, obviously expensive things are not in my remit. Sadly, I guess it went bankrupt. I don't know exactly when, but yeah, so DC-6 Diner, as it was called, ran for a while, but now it's not. The aeroplane itself is being dismantled, or probably I think it has been dismantled now and being transported to the same place that this one is being taken to. So the two DC-6s are both happily being preserved. Hopefully this one is going to get flying again soon at some point, or maybe both of them, who knows. But it'd be great to see a DC-6 flying again in this country. Some more ATPs over here. Magic Bird. Very cool. So you can see from all sorts of different company liveries. I guess these were bought to just use as parts aeroplanes to keep West Atlantic's aircraft flying. Like I said, there's one that lives, I think it lives over here on this bit of tarmac, maybe, or maybe even on the grass over this way on. It's in a very dilapidated state, though. Most of the bits have been taken off it. So there you go. I can definitely recommend this Coventry scenery. Unbelievable amount of care and attention has been put into making this, and I applaud the people who did it. It's free. Go pick it up. Unless, of course, you never fly in the UK, in which case don't bother. But if you do fly around in the UK, I can 100% recommend this place. Right, on to the next place. Okay, so here we are at the holding point at Coventry Bravo 1, just before the runway. Observant ones among you will notice that it's a bit darker in the sky. It was a little bit further on in the day. That's because I had to take a bit of a break in between filming the last part of the video and this one. But we've still got similar weather conditions, so it shouldn't be too big a difference. We've got everything loaded up. Aircraft, all the pre-flight stuff has been done. We've just got the lineup checks to do. So that's what we're going to do now. So the approach path is all clear. Transponder's going 7000 and on mode and code. Pitot heat, and all of the lights here coming on as well. I've also put the nav lights on because with it being a bit darker in the cockpit, I can actually see the landing gear lights. So because of the lack of taxiways at Coventry, you kind of have to backtrack a large part of the runway when you do this, which is a bit annoying. Obviously, the aircraft's got the performance. We could kind of go from halfway down, but I've always been taught that that's kind of bad practice, even in an aircraft that's capable of that, just because the runway behind you is absolutely no use whatsoever. So in the case of an emergency, it'd be much more convenient to put the airplane down on the remaining runway rather than have to put it down in a field, and I tend to agree with that, so we're going to stick with it. While we're rolling down the runway here, I've still got my mixture pulled back to try and keep the plugs clean, so we'll have to remember to throw that forward before we take off. In real life, I'd be kind of putting my hand on the mixture lever so I don't forget. I suppose I can do that on my Bravo quadrant as we're rolling down the runway here. Right, our next destination is going to be Wellesbourne Mountford Airfield near Stratford-on-Avon, not too far away. So without further ado, let's open her up. T's and P's are good, no warning lights, off the brakes, takeoff power set and indicating, I've got a bit of left crosswind, so I'm going to just put the controls slightly into wind. So, yeah. And very gently back on the yoke, and away we go. It's a great time of the day to fly in Microsoft Flight Simulator in the evening, because the lighting is really, really good, in my opinion, anyway. So we should get some nice sunsets as we continue our little journey. It's been a pretty hot day here in the UK, so the thermals are out in force. Thankfully, out of all the aeroplanes in Microsoft Flight Simulator, this one deals with them probably the best, really. PMDG planes are pretty good with it, I guess, but I mean they're big, so wouldn't expect them to ride the thermals in quite the same way as something like this. Now, given that we've only got 8 miles to go, so I'm going to level off at 2,500 feet here. This should be more than sufficient. And we'll plan what kind of join we're going to do into Wellesbourne. Not going to go hell for leather this time, just because we do have such a short distance to travel. So the runways at Wellesbourne, the main one is 1836, so we're going to set up for that. I mean, we're already kind of over the top of it. So what we're going to do is come down a little bit. And fly a bit of an overhead join. Let's pop the runway centre line on here so we've got a bit of a reference. It's useful in real life, but it's especially useful in Flight Simulator because of how your viewpoint is kind of restricted a little bit. I don't know if the various different things that you have access to, like eye trackers and things like that, make that any better, but certainly for me right now, I need all the help I can get. So the airfield's about 150 foot elevation, I think, from what I remember. So we want to be 2,000 foot, because we're over the live side here, so we want to be at least 1,000 foot clearance. Now the area around here is quite sort of noise sensitive, so I'll try to provide you a bit of example of what this circuit's supposed to look like once we've done our descent. I'm doing a very bad job of maintaining altitude right now. Right, let's pop that on. Fuel pumps on already. The landing lights are on. I'm going to pop the gear down a bit early. We're below 125. That should give us some drag as we descend on the dead side. Get to about there, and that should probably about do us. Now we have to kind of dodge around the village here. Which is annoying. You'd think people buying a house in a village which borders on an airfield would understand that most of the time they're going to listen to aeroplanes, but apparently some of them love sending in noise complaints. So who am I to judge people for their pastimes? Get rid of the carpet for now anyway. So once we're outside the bounds of the village, we can turn onto a more conventional downwind leg. We'll do our downwind checks now. So brakes pressurised, undercarriage is down and green indicating. Mixture is on rich, mags are on both, fuel's on sufficient and in balance. Let's check the tanks, they're both about half now. Flaps deployed, flaps 1 at the moment. Instruments are all in the green, carb heat not just yet. Hashes and harnesses all secured, lights are on. And we are ready. Once we've cleared the village, we will start to position onto base leg. Okay, second stage of flap. Let's pop the carbies on now. Let's do reds, blues and greens. Okay, carbies away, just in case we have to make a low altitude go around. Looks like we're getting a bit of wind, potentially. Almost on the centre line, I'll take it. Okay, we'll pull off onto the disused runway. Well, it's not disused actually, it's the cross runway. So this is also an active runway. It's much shorter than the other one though, so the other one is preferred. Right, let's lean out, let's get the flaps up. Transponder can go standby. Strobes and landing lights. Now, it's been quite a while since I've been here in real life, unlike the other airports that we've visited so far that I'm sort of reasonably familiar with. So you'll have to bear with me a little bit here, because my knowledge isn't quite as current. But I'm still a fan of this scenery. I think it's very, very nice. Not so much commercial training goes on at this place, it's mostly PPL type stuff. Although a company called On Track Aviation works here, who do a lot of instructor ground training in the UK. So if you want an instructor seminar or something like that, these guys can set you up with it. See, they've got a little aviation museum on the left hand side there. You got a vampire in a shed. And it's like a yak of some kind. Nose cone of something or other. Now the parking at this airfield is all on the grass, just in front of the clubhouse building here. So we'll swing her onto the grass, try and keep it as square as possible and as slow as possible when you transit from tarmac to grass. Also, you want to be going full back on the yoke as well to take as much pressure off the nose wheel as possible. Okay, that'll do. We'll set the parking brake. Okay, starting over here at our aeroplane. Let's go with a little clubhouse here. So, it's quite a small operation here at Wellesbourne, as you might be able to tell. You can see that the flying school that was at Coventry have another base here, so their logo has appeared on the side of this building here. We've got the Touchdown Cafe here, which is a good little place. From what I remember, they've got lots of little models of aeroplanes hanging from the ceiling, which is pretty common for GA airfields. Got a nice little control tower here with a very attentive looking gentleman looking at his completely blank computer screen. And T-posing Nice. He's loving life. Hangars down here for various GA aircraft. You'll be forgiven for thinking they look like sheds, but no, they are in fact hangars. Take flight. Not sure who these guys is, or these guys are, sorry, but that's their building there. There's probably quite a few little flying schools at Wellesbourne. Like I said, please forgive me, I've not been here in a little while. Some more hangars over here. Somebody has apparently got a oh, that's Aztec, and I don't know, Citation XL, I guess. Not entirely sure if those come into Wellesbourne very often, but we've got one here. Going all the way down here, we've got the South Warwickshire Flying School based over here. And we've got a Vulcan. So this thing is actually, well, it's not flyable, although probably is, but it's not allowed to fly. It does fast taxi runs up and down the runway, although I think last year or maybe the year before it ran off the runway and went across the grass a little bit, so it might need a little bit of work before it can go back to doing that. But another Vulcan, another Midlands airport with another Vulcan on it. You can see the runways here. We can pop over this side. So again, another airfield with a large amount of development on it. This was an airfield which was under threat of being closed to build houses all over, and until not that long ago, I think. So you can see a lot of the land has been taken up by other things other than aviation, which is a little bit annoying, I guess. But I mean, it's much better than the airfield closing, isn't it? So I'll allow it. Can see the extent of what this runway used to be. It used to go all the way down there. Now this is all there is. And there's usually some, I think, on to the either side and here. There are quite often crops growing in the fields, which can make life interesting if you have to kind of land off airfield for whatever reason. Have a problem, which means you lose directional control and you swerve off the runway, end up in tall crops, which isn't massively ideal. You can see the windsock over here. And we've got a few more buildings. I'm not entirely sure which building On Track inhabits. Maybe it's this one. Heli Air. No, I'm presuming it's not that. It's one of these. I don't know. So we've got, what's that? A Wildcat or a Hellcat? Hellcat, I think. The front end off, was it a Javelin? Another Javelin. Vampire. Destroyer of runways, and yeah, some more porta cabins and things. And this is the flying school here. Reputation above all else. Yes, very fancy. Right, so that's that. So Wellesbourne, another great little bit of cheap, completely free scenery, the best kind of cheap. So definitely recommend you pick this up if you like to fly around the Midlands. This is a popular little airfield in real life, so can certainly recommend this one. Okay, here we go again. Next waypoint is in. We are going to Duxford. If you watched my video on the BF109 from Flying Iron, you'll have seen a little bit of free Duxford, because that's where I was flying it from. But we're going to go over there now and have a bit of a closer look at it. So let's make sure mixture's full rich. One last blast of the carb heats. Approach path is clear. Transponder can go. Alt reporting. Pitot, all the lights. T's and P's are green. Let's go. Should probably put my headset on to make it slightly less loud for you guys. Away we go. Positive climb, insufficient runway. Touch the brakes, gears going up. Gear is up, lights are out. Let's go straight ahead till we miss the village, and then we can start a left-hand turn en route. Set climb power. myself a direct to. There we go. Direct track 094. Let's get the CDI aligned to that. And the heading. Now we can do our after takeoff check. So flaps up, gears up, lights can go, fuel pump can go. T's and P's are all green. Attitude and trims set for the climb. As you're climbing every sort of 500 feet or so, quick glance at the temperatures and pressures, still all looking good and happy, nothing flashing on the engine monitor. And every 1,000 feet or so, good look over the nose, looking for any traffic, which is your chief concern really as a VFR pilot, running into people. There we go. So quick look out and also bump the power forward as it drops as you climb. If you go up to 4,000 feet, it should be more than enough. And see what kind of speed we can get out of it. Okay, let's level off here. Pull the mixture back a touch. Cruise checklist, throttles set, props set, mixture's been leaned, fuel pump is off, fuel pressure is looking good, and engine gauges are all set and in the green. And I'm going to pop the autopilot master switch on. Let it take the strain for a little bit, slightly longer leg, so I'll cut out the en route stuff unless something particularly interesting happens, another engine failure or something. And I'll rejoin you when we're about to join at Duxford. Just thought I'd have a quick talk about this feature. If any of you guys have got Navigraph charts, I can definitely recommend it. It is a monthly subscription type thing, so unfortunately free users can't get hold of this kind of stuff. But there are things like Little Nav Map and things like that that are quite cool. But if you do have Navigraph, if you are lucky enough to have it, there's a VFR charts option in the in-game widget, whatever you want to call it, and it's quite a good VFR chart. It's got all the airspace in here, and it also has runway directions and circuit directions. So I'm not mega familiar with Duxford, and as the game freezes. But what this allows me to do is have a look where the runways are going and which way around the circuit is, which is great. I think we're going to be using probably going to be using 2-4, given the wind today is mostly southerly, but it's going to be 2-4 with a feral crosswind from sort of this direction. But yeah, I'll check the Stansted weather when we get a little bit closer, maybe. But we can see it's the left-hand circuit. But we can send dead side over here and then just slot into the circuit like that. If you want to do a standard overhead, of course, you can come over here, fly over the top, send dead side, blah 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 blah, that way around. But yeah, what we're going to do is descend dead side and come straight across, assuming I plan my descent appropriately, which is unfortunately not a guarantee. But yeah, there we go. Just thought I'd give that a showcase. So Navigraph stuff, not just for you IFR Airways flying airliner guys. If you're a VFR flight sim fan, these charts are pretty helpful too, and you can even put your aeroplane on there too, which is great. Okay, so autopilot is staying on for now. Fuel pump is coming off. Fuel selectors, we're going to change tanks onto the mains now, not off. There we go. So the auxiliaries are almost empty now. Bear in mind this little gauge actually overreads, so you have to sort of change when it still reads about a quarter. Fuel pressure is good. Mixture is staying leaned for now while we're just still in the descent here. I'll keep progressively richening it up a little bit. Prop is going to stay where it is for now. Mixture, yeah, prop carb heats is on at the moment. Airspeed's fine. Gear flaps and before landing checks. Won't need to do those just yet. So let's align with the runway. And we're going to go for OBS mode again. That's helpful. Gives you airfield elevation on here as well. So we've got 126 feet, so the circuit is about 1,100 feet then. That'll do us. And pop the autopilot off now. Keeping the mixture a little bit lean because we can see the temperatures are dropping quite cool. You can kind of get that in a relatively high speed descent with larger engines, so you kind of have to... the mixture is really one of the only things you've got in an aircraft that doesn't have cowl flaps to try to control the temperatures. Now, one thing I have noticed is it does seem to chug a little bit around Duxford. I do tend to get a lot of those micro freezers, but I don't know if that's the fault of the scenery or just because obviously Cambridge is quite close to Duxford as well, and Cambridge is one of those hyper-detailed cities in Microsoft Flight Simulator, so it could be that that's causing it. I'm not 100%, so I'm not going to start criticising the scenery for affecting frame rates just yet until I'm absolutely sure that it is that. It seems to have smoothed out a bit. Coming around onto crosswinds. Keep the descent going, try and get the speed under control a little bit on the quick side, I must say. There's our 1,100 feet, so we can trim out now, pitch for level flight and allow the airspeed to come off. At about, I don't know, 18 inches manifold pressure, something like that, 17, 18, maybe a little bit less than that, which should be about right for circuit speed in this aeroplane. I tend to take what I'd use in the Arrow and knock a couple of inches off it for this aeroplane. Okay, let's get the speed below 125. Then we can get the landing gear down, do our before landing checks. Slippy aeroplane, as you might imagine, from having this laminar flow wing, which is kind of the Comanche's claim to fame. Okay, to 125, gear select down, and flaps 1. So brakes pressurised, undercarriage down, and indicating mixture mags, mixture go full, rich mags are on both. Fuel's on sufficient, in balance, flaps. We've got flaps 1 at the moment. Instruments in the green, carb heat is on, but it can come off for now. Hatches and harnesses all secure. And let's get the lights on. There we go. I might actually need some instrument lights in a sec, because it's starting to get a bit dark in the cockpit here. So everyone who always complains that I forget to test the cockpits in the dark, you absolutely have a point, but you're going to get your wish today. Let's have a look out there. It's looking okay. Let's drop that second stage of flaps in. Start the descent coming down. Okay, we'll try and slot between these two villages here, fly a slightly sort of wonky final approach for the sake of noise abatement. There appears to be a biplane lining up for the hopefully the grass runway. That's definitely a player. He seems to be having fun. Hello, sir. Right, last stage of flaps. Reds, blues and greens. Should really get some carbies on. But then get it straight back off again. Ready for a potential go-arounds. Almost had the centre line. Okay, keep the speed up and let it roll. So, for those of you not from the UK, you never heard of Duxford, or maybe you're not sort of involved in aviation all that much in the UK. Duxford Aerodrome, former airbase. Is that Tiger Moth, who's obviously having a lot of fun there. Is the home of the Imperial War Museum aviation collection in the UK. So they've got a lot of military aircraft, old military aircraft, World War II era and before, stationed here. There are a lot of companies, or there's a company based here which restores Spitfires as well, and probably other Merlin engined aircraft too. So there's inevitably a lot of warbirds knocking around in Duxford, which is really cool, but also quite scary when you're trying to share the circuit with them, since they tend to be very fast and need to fly kind of slightly odd circuits, more kind of oval shaped circuits than we'd fly in a light aircraft. Okay, so off the runway, transponder can go standby, fuel pump, and pop the autopilot master off here, pitot heats, strobes and landing lights. Okay, mixer's already leaned out. At 7 knots. Pretty much a straight crosswind, which is going to make that Tiger Moth's life a little bit difficult, but he seems to be doing pretty well. I'm going to park up in front of the lineup of old airliners for a little tour around the airfield. Okay, so here we are, parked up in front of all the beautiful airliners here. But we'll start over here. So this is the actual Imperial War Museum air collection. Now this in real life is a big glass frontage to this hangar, but it's a picture in this scenery. Shh, they'll never know. Coming over here, we've got all sorts of military-related things. You've got a big, I don't know, barn with a gun in it, which looks cool, I guess. Gun turret of some sort. Oh, is it good enough? Can we read this? Yeah, 9.2-inch coastal defense gun. An example of the something guns installed out of the British Empire in the early 1900s. Interesting. Okay, cool. 9.2-inch, odd caliber that one. So that's what that is. It's very impressive scenery, this. It's got some unbelievable detail. We've got a V1 over here on a launch rail, which is cool. Coming over here, what we got over here? Got a war memorial over here. With a gentleman with a really cool LMG on that. Royal Anglian Regiment. He died on duty. Godspeed, sir. What we got over here? That looks like some kind of bridging implement for a mobile bridging device of some kind. So, bunch of little army trucks and things from various eras. That's an OSA, I think, Soviet-made air defense system. Hageland, the little thing, this cute little thing here. We've got a tank, tankety tank. Looks like a Leopard, I guess, Leopard 2. And a Marder, maybe? Not exactly War Thunder quality, but they look cool. Abrams, maybe. And some more bits over here. Another Marder and a truck with a thing on the back. All sorts of cool military vehicles. Another couple of Abrams and a Leopard 2. Not entirely sure if they're there in real life, but very cool to see those, nonetheless. Let's go back along the flight line and have a look at some of these airliners, see if I can recognise some or all of these. So this one is a... Is it a Fokker? Might be a Fokker. F-27. See if I can read this thing here. Oh, it's a BAC 111. There we go. Designed and built entirely in Britain, the BAC 111 was the last all-British jet airliner and the one most successful, with 244 sold, including to the USA. RIP the British aircraft industry. There we go. That's a 111. This is a BAC Trident, because I can see the fact that it says Trident on the back of it. So, yeah, Hawker Siddeley Trident. Cool, cool aeroplane. It's got an offset nose wheel. Is one of the... Or has it? I'm pretty sure it has in real life, but maybe this model hasn't. But one of the interesting things about it in real life is the nose wheel kind of sits off to one side to make way for a really big avionics bay that sits just behind the pilots. It's one of the first aircraft that technically could have been flown with 2 people, but it was still operated with 3 for the most part. Interesting landing gear as well on the main gear unit. It's got these quad tire units sitting there. So yeah, cool plane. This is one of the most beautiful airliners anywhere, really, in my opinion. It's the VC-10. In fact, this is a super VC-10. Largest jet airliner designed and built in Britain, with engines at the back. Very, very overpowered, very fast aircraft, this. Completely clean wing, which was great for aerodynamics, which makes you wonder why they never kind of kept up with that. Bit strange, but there you go. Probably because you can't put really high bypass engines on the back of the plane. There's not really space for it, and cabin noise and things like that, I guess. Answered my own question. Very close to the Soviet version, which is the IL-62, I believe, Ilyushin 62, which I've actually seen one of the few flying examples of that in real life before. That's either an RJ-825 or a BAC 146, BAE 146, sorry. Let's read the thing. It's a BAE 146, there we go. This is an RAF VIP transport version, which the royal family used to fly around on, and also high-ranking members of the UK military. Monarch, RIP Monarch. It was an airline which lasted for a very long time in the UK. Went bust in, I think, 2017, maybe before that. It's trying to make a comeback now, but we'll see what happens with that, because we all know about airlines which try to make comebacks and then die. But there we go. But this is a Bristol Britannia, which is the first large turboprop airliner. So this was a really cool aircraft. It could have had a big impact on the international air transport scene, but unfortunately it had some issues, mechanical issues, which got in the way of things. It's a recurring story in the UK aviation industry, if you know the story of the Comet. Pretty much the same story with that. This is the this odd-looking little thing here is a Britten-Norman Trilander, belonging to Aurigny Air Services, which is a Guernsey-based airline. There we go. Average flight time of less than 20 minutes there. Cool little aeroplane. It's not got a face on the front though, has it? Hang on. Vickers Viscount. It's another turboprop airliner. 445 of these built. One of the few to succeed in the American market. There we go. So it's much smaller than the Britannia there, as you can see. Not quite transatlantic spec, but good aircraft for shorter routes. Dan Air. Airspeed Ambassador. Only survivor of the production run of 23 Ambassadors produced specifically for British European Airways, who calls it the Elizabethan after the newly crowned Queen. Well, there we go. Rest in peace, Queen Liz. Very cool triple tail there, similar to the Connie. Not quite as pretty as a Connie though, I must say. Right, so that's the airliner lineup. Let's carry on down here. We've got the identifier of the airfield there, and the signal square. We've got the fire unit, a couple of blokes hanging out on the tower. These are all bits of the museum, I'm presuming, which obviously were hangars in the days when this was an active airbase. Air and sea. Nice big hangars. Probably put lots of airplanes in there. A shed of some kind with an accompanying forklift. Not sure if these bits are, I'm guessing these are like support buildings. These were originally, I guess, accommodation blocks or something. That looks like maybe the station HQ here. And a few other sort of miscellaneous buildings. Very much World War II era military and sort of 50s and 60s, I guess. Got a nice little bridge here. This is all, I guess, part of the scenery. Yeah, the road, this road is definitely part of the scenery. It's much too detailed to be default Microsoft Flight Simulator. Although the traffic seems to be having fun here. It's going the wrong side of the island. A few buildings and houses and things there. Car park here. Got a few more hangars. It's even detailed enough to read the signs to see what's in the hangars. Flying aircraft. Fair enough. The best kind of aircraft, in my opinion. Who knows what this is? Maybe some kind of kiddies play area. Which is cool. I would have killed to have a go on that when I was 5 years old. A wooden Lancaster bomber. More bits of the airfield. The armory. Guess this is the gift shop. Come in and buy your plastic Spitfires for an exorbitant price. Airspace. It's a big old hangar, isn't it? Put some larger aircraft in there, presumably. And this is the Aircraft Restoration Company, which does all of the work on the warbirds and what have you. Lots of fantastic work goes on in these hangars to keep aircraft alive for the next generation. They also do a lot of maintenance on warbirds, like the Battle of Britain Memorial Flights aircraft, so they're Lancasters and DC-3s, Dakota, things like that. Get a lot of their maintenance done here when it can't be done in-house. So there we go. Duxford scenery. I would absolutely recommend this. Even if you're not familiar with it in real life, it's absolutely worth having, especially if you're interested in warbirds or anything like that. It's the perfect place to fly your warbirds around the UK. Let's go back to our aeroplane and we'll head on to our final destination. Sounds a bit ominous, doesn't it? Okay, so we're all set up and ready to go for our last part of this flight, which is going to be the longest. It's going to be 150 miles or so, all the way over to Exeter Airport in Cornwall. Mixture's going full rich. Bit of carb heats. Approach path's clear. Transponders coming on to out reporting. P2 on the lights. It's getting properly dark now, but we can enjoy the lovely sunset and the lovely lighting in the cockpit of the Comanche here. Right, carb heat's coming off, and we're ready to go. Takeoff's power is set. No warning lights, T's and P's are green. Controls into wind a little bit here. And away we go. Positive climb, insufficient runway, touch the brakes, gears coming up. Let's go 24, 24. pretty much climb out on runway heading, because that's the heading that we need, heading down south. Now obviously there's all sorts of airspace and stuff en route that normally I'd have to put in a lot of effort to negotiate clearances through or route around or all sorts of things like that. In fact, in real life, what I'd probably do is file a flight plan and just fly at IFR, which makes your life significantly easier when you've got a lot of airspace to deal with. But we're in flight sim. It's a lovely evening. Let's not concern ourselves too much with that. But that's just an indication of what I would be doing in real life. So flaps up, lights out, fuel pumps off, T's and P's green, attitude and trim for the climb. Take her up again to about, well, let's go a little bit higher because it's quite bumpy down low, although as the sun sets and the temperature drops. In fact, let's keep an eye on the... It's a bit too warm in here at the moment, so let's pop the cabin heat off a little bit. There we go. Yeah, so as the temperature drops, the thermals should start to die down, and then it'll get a lot smoother. But we'll still climb reasonably high to try and get out of the rough stuff. Should make our life a bit more pleasant. Okay, so here we are with about 18 miles to run to Exeter, and as you can see, the beautiful sunset has disappeared behind a bunch of clouds. So it's getting a little bit more inclement as we head southbound. Plus, given that I'm not really familiar with this part of the world and flying visual approaches into Exeter, I thought it might be a good idea to showcase an instrument approach in the Comanche and show you what that sort of stuff looks like. So we're going to set up for an ILS. Now I'm not sure what runway they're on, so I've put the ATIS on COM2, so hit the both button there.
Exeter Airport.
There we go.
Charlie 19000 Zulu. Wind tree 51 at 4. Visibility 6. Sky condition 6,500 feet. Scattered ceiling 14,000 feet broken. Temperature 19er. 2.10. QNH 29.904. ILS runway 8 in use. Landing and departing runway 8. VFR aircraft say direction of flight. All aircraft read back hold short instructions. Advise controller on initial contact UF Charlie.
Okay, so we've got runway 08 in use. So I'm just going to pop up the charts here. So if we bring up Exeter. Go approach, and we get an ILS for runway 08. We can see that there's a procedure that runs by the Echo X-ray NDB, so I've loaded that in there. We're tracking towards it at the moment. I've already idented it all up and everything, but we need to be down at 3,500 feet for that one. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to load it as an RNAV overlay, because I kind of suck at tracking NDBs using one of these RBIs as it is, and also because it's all the way over on this side of the cockpit, it makes life really difficult, so I'm not going to embarrass myself with attempting the full raw data. I'm also going to put an RNAV overlay on as well. So you do that by hitting procedure, select approach, we'll take the ILS for 08 via Echo X-ray, and we're going to activate that because we're going to go straight to it. It tells you, gives you a warning that it's not for sole guidance. You have to use the raw data because that's what the procedure is based on, which is fine. I'm going to reset the track over here, pull that over there. In fact, I'm going to go to heading hold mode on the autopilot for this part, and I'm also going to prepare for the descent. We're going to need to get down in 6 miles, which is not a lot. So I'm just going to throw the mixture forward, pull the power back, put some carbies in. We'll do our approach checklist for now. So autopilot master is off, fuel pump can come on. Fuel selectors are on the main tanks. Fuel levels, we have plenty, just above half. Fuel pressure is looking good. Mixture's full rich. Prop is staying where it is for now. Carb heaters required. Airspeed's fine. Gear is staying up for now. Flaps are staying up for now. And what's it saying? It's saying trim. Oh, well, it's because I forgot to do that. There we go. Right, so it's giving us a warning that the temps are kind of going a bit cold in one of the cylinders, number 6 cylinder. So I'm going to pull the mixture back out a little bit. You've got to be quite cautious when you're leaning out in a descent in a carburetted aeroplane, because you could potentially get the aircraft over lean as you descend, and the air becomes thicker and more dense. And also potentially, if it gets bad enough, you'll get a lean cut on your engine. But because we are quite high and we've got quite a long descent to do, I'm just going to lean it out a little bit. Now, I don't think we're going to make 3 miles. What was it? 3,500 feet? Yeah, 3,500 feet. We might struggle with that, but we'll set a reasonably high rate of descent. We'll let it come down. We'll pick up the ideal altitude profile eventually. Probably should have started this setup procedure a little bit earlier than I did, but hey ho, we live, we learn. That's the airfield down there, I believe. Yeah, it is. But we're going to fly past it, and then we're going to be landing on this runway coming in the opposite direction. So, aids and ATIS. So, let's set up our nav aids. We should have 1099. Hey, look at that. Very helpfully it's tuned it in on both of those on the active, so that's good. We've got getting an ident of India X-Ray Romeo, which is wrong. It should be India X-Ray Tango. So hopefully that's not an indication that we've got the wrong frequency tune in, but hey ho. Might just be Microsoft Flight Simulator being weird and giving us the ident for the other end, so we'll leave that for now. Final approach course 077, so we can get the course off that. Now we're in heading hold mode anyway as we go around the corner. In fact, you know what? We'll leave that off for now. We need 244 on this, so we'll stick that on for now, and we'll defer putting the final approach track on there. What we're doing altitude-wise, 4,000 feet. We're still coming down. We've got a glide slope integrity check at 6.4 miles, 2,200 feet. The decision altitude is 300 feet. We'll throw 50 feet on top of that for position error correction, so we'll go for 350. Missed approach is straight ahead to the NDB and hold at 2,500 feet, blah, 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 unless directed by ATC. Any notes? We've got an alternate procedure which we shouldn't have to fly. We're outside controlled airspace, which really doesn't matter. And we've got no approach bound in force, and it is a 3-degree glide slope. Any questions? I'm assuming no questions. So now we just fly the procedure. Now I'm going to pull a little bit more power out actually and pick this descent up, because we need to be at what for the shelf? 2,200. And we've got 3.5 miles to do it in. That's going to be a bit of an ask, so definitely need to pick up that rate of descent. Now, one of the slightly annoying things about the Comanche is how harsh the limiting speeds are on all of the landing gear and flap. So it's not like I can pull gear and flap out to help myself out with this one and drag the aircraft up. But oh well, we'll just have to brace our passengers for some poppy ear antics. Just on the subject of that, it's quite strange when you fly a unpressurized aircraft regularly how easily you become used to sort of clearing your ears. And you almost don't sense the change in pressure anymore. Which is weird. It's like a rubbish superpower. You never have that problem of having painful ear pops on an aeroplane. Okay, we're coming up to 2,000. I'm getting ready to engage the altitude hold again. I'm just adjusting the aircraft's attitude with a bit of pitch input, which is kind of like no control wheel steering mode. Just realised that that waypoint is actually not the inbound turn. I really should have been monitoring the DME, not the GPS distance, but you live, you learn. We're down at the platform altitude anyway, so that's handy. I'm going to start to add power back in, but we're going to go for a lower speed setting that we'd normally go for. We'll aim for about 120 knots. That's a good speed for the procedure. Okay, so we can see we're sort of halfway down there. We're looking for 9.5 DME as our inbound turn point. So our DME is actually over there. So it's getting 4.4. So we've got plenty of time, actually. So I've just subjected our hypothetical passengers to some ear trauma for absolutely nothing. But there you go. I make these mistakes so you don't have to. It's a shame these clouds are spoiling the sunset, actually, because it would have been perfect. Never mind. So our aids and ATIS are set. The briefing's done. The checklist is pretty much done, apart from the last few items. So we're sitting pretty. We're all ready to go for our instrument approach. So that's just a little check that I always do myself, and also I teach my students. ABC for flying an instrument approach. Make sure you've got everything set up and ready to go. So we're coming up. It's about half a mile to go. So I'm going to flip this around to our final approach track with 077. Yeah. Okay. So let's get that set. Like that. I'm also going to put it in VOR localized mode, so that's now picking up a signal from the ILS rather than the GPS. You have to forgive me from focusing a little bit more on the instruments, and you can't really see what's going on outside. That's the nature of instrument flying, I'm afraid. Okay, so let's make the turn. I'm going to initially bug an intercept. So what I usually do is align the heading bug on end of the deflected bar of the course deviation indicator, which is a good sort of nominal intercept angle usually. Autopilot's flying as a nice rate 1 turn, which is exactly what you want. Now, there's no approach mode on this autopilot. I could, I suppose, keep it in nav mode and trim it out to fly the desired rate of descent. But even I'm not that lazy. I'll take over and fly manually from the top of descent point, I think. Or probably from localizer capture, because it's really tricky to capture the localizer using the autopilot. Okay, I'm looking for top of drop at 6.4, which also doubles up as our glide slope integrity check. Okay, localizer's alive. I'm going to disconnect. I want to try to disconnect. Should have been a little bit sharper on that. Intercept, never mind. Pick it back up again. It's important that you don't overcorrect when you make a mistake like that. And that's half-scale deflection. Speed, ooh, speed isn't below 125. Let's get the speed back. There we go. Speed below 125, gear select down. It's important that you don't overcorrect when you make a mistake like that. And flaps 1 below 125. Come back here, localizer. Gonna have to make a bigger correction. There's flaps 2, and down we come. Okay, so the ATIS said the wind was very light, but I don't know, it seems like we're getting a bit of crosswind from the right, perhaps. I've got a nice rate of descent now trimmed out 500 feet per minute, that's perfect. We're a little bit slow, probably want about 100 knots. We've got about 90 at the moment, so I'm just going to pick the throttle up a little bit. I'm going to go full rich on the mixture. Power setting should be sufficient at the moment that we don't need carb heat, but I'll keep an eye on that. A little bit low, so I'm going to reduce the rate of descent, trim up just slightly. It's very important that you're always trimmed for your attitude that gives you your target rate of descent. How do you work out your target rate of descent? Well, in a light aircraft, it's usually half your ground speed out of 0. So ground speed at the moment is about 95. Call it 100 knots. So 50 out of 0, 500 feet per minute. It's a very, very rough and ready guide. There's actually a table on your approach plate which gives you a more accurate figure, but if you want to just work it out on the go, that's the way to do it. So the important thing with flying an instrument approach is maintain your instrument scan, which means don't focus on any single instrument. Keep your eyes moving constantly and always take it back to the attitude indicator, which is your primary instrument. It's getting a little bumpier as we're getting close to the ground. And thermals and things like that will pick the aeroplane up and decrease your rate of descent as you get close to the ground on a warm day, or a warm evening as we have now. So it's important that you anticipate that and sort of push through the thermals. Comanche is such a nice airplane to fly though, it's so stable, so it really helps. You can see the wind is actually getting less, it's backing and slacking, which means it's swinging around to the left and getting less intense as we get close to the ground. So we have to constantly update our crab angle when we're approaching with a crosswind to compensate for that. Now we can clearly see the runway in front of us, but I'm trying not to focus on that and keep the aircraft on instruments for a little bit longer. Probably about a 2-mile final, we'll switch visual and fully configure the aircraft for landing. You can see those thermals are just trying to lift us high a little bit at the moment, so I'm pushing through that, reducing power a little bit to prevent the aircraft from becoming too fast. But it's important that we don't overcorrect, because that's how you get into a oscillating state close to the ground, which is absolutely not what you want, especially in poor visibility. It's very easy to create a dangerously unstable situation. Slightly low now, raising the nose slightly, tweaking the throttle up just a tiny bit. Everything I'm doing is just tiny movements on the controls, tiny adjustments left and right. Okay, let's go reds, blues, greens. Below 125, let's get the last stage of flaps in. Carb heat's coming off. Just realised I don't have my landing lights on. My bad. See if I can put them on now. There we go. This is going to be a floaty landing. Never mind. Now, in real life, I never would have tried to turn those landing light switches on at the last second. I'd have just landed without, but never mind. Try and get off on this taxiway here. Oh, there's a van very helpfully parked on it. Well, I'm driving through you. Right, flaps coming up. Transponder standby. Pop that landing light off and the strobe off. Peter, he can come off as well. There's just vans everywhere. Already leaned the mixture out a little bit. Okay, so here we are just outside the terminal at Exeter here in the VIP spot with all our chocks and everything inserted. The airplane's all secured for the night, apart from obviously the door. Right, so I suppose we should have a quick look around Exeter to top the video off. Now obviously it's night time, and the nighttime lighting here is really, really nice. But I suppose it's not fair that we looked at all the other airfields in the daytime and this one's at night time. So I'll just give you a quick scan of what everything looks like at night. We've got this hangar here, all lit up. Very, very cool. And the car park's all floodlit. Yeah, very cool. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reload in with daytime set, so we can have a look at what that looks like. Okay, back in daytime Exeter, and very nice it looks too. You can see that everything here is present and correct. We've got a whole fleet of containers over here. A accurate fuel truck, a de-icing vehicle, and all sorts of other airport appliances and vehicles over here. We'll take you over the other side, have a look at some of those buildings over there too. Got more hangars and snow clearing vehicles and all sorts of stuff stored over this side of the airfield. The ubiquitous airfield bus that always sorts of hangs around and gets neglected on the airfield. We've got an engine test bay over here. Let's have a look at this hangar. Yeah, it's very nice. Someone's got their citation parked over here and a couple of Cessnas. Fire training ground over here. And we've got the GA hangar over here with a few nice twins parked up. And the helicopters. Devon Air Ambulance lives here, operates out of here. And a few more GA aircraft. Like I said, the GA aircraft usually kind of get stuck over here, and sometimes they have to kind of park on the grass around this area. Over these hangars here, so these hangars used to belong to a certain airline, which no longer exists, sadly. I think Flying Colours run at least one of these hangars who paint aeroplanes. There's also, it's big on maintenance around here, so there's a maintenance company that runs everything. We can see a nice little Embraer E-Jet. I think that's a 175 or a 195, can't quite tell. Parked up over there. The terminal at Exeter's really small, but it's homely, I guess you could call it. The interesting feature is also the control tower is part of the terminal, sits on top. You can see the air traffic controllers are wearing their cool dude shades, which they definitely need. So coming over here, you can see there's actually a little seating area. So I used to sit here and wait for my inevitably delayed flights to take me back towards my home. Whenever I was down here, there's like I think it's a Witherspoons, which is like a pub. You could buy food from in there and then sit out here and watch the aeroplanes come in and taxi in, which was really cool. Nice little outdoor viewing area. All bits of the terminal around here. Car park. I always remember one of my defining memories of this place is when I came here for a job interview, and I was nervous as you like, and walking through here and up this road, past all the hangars and everything, and it was I don't know if it's actually modelled. It was there's a hotel up here, or at least there was. This might just be default Microsoft Flight Simulator at this point when this road runs out, maybe. So this, I think, is the building that used to be the training centre for the airline. which I was going for an interview for, and this, I guess, is supposed to be the hotel. Yeah. And the hotel was really funny because although it wasn't owned by the airline, a large majority of the guests in the hotel were people working for the airline. So it was almost like the airline's own personal hotel. Yeah, and this place would be the training centre, and the sims were kind of in a big glass-fronted part of the building here. It's really cool. Very cool building. Very cool airline. Too bad it doesn't exist anymore. Can thank the people at the very top for ruining that one for all of us. Never mind. Anyway, so Exeter Airport by Super Spud. He makes some brilliant scenery for Microsoft Flight Simulator. He does some really good Scilly Isles scenery as well, which I definitely recommend you picking up. It's just that we didn't visit that one because I thought that the video is long enough as it is. So yeah, so some great sceneries there. I definitely recommend all of those. If you guys fly around the UK and want somewhere new to visit, head over to flightsim.to. All the links for these places are in the description of the video. Pick them up, download them for free, explore them, check them out. As for the aeroplane, obviously Comanche is absolutely fantastic. If you've not watched my review video of this aircraft, go and watch it right now. And the long and short of that review is it's brilliant. It's pretty much the best GA aeroplane in the sim. And you should definitely support A2A by picking it up if you care about general aviation aircraft in Microsoft Flight Simulator. That said, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed yourself, please like, subscribe, comment, blah blah blah, all the usual stuff. Press the bell thing, whatever the usual YouTube spiel is, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Take care, and bye-bye.